sports fans. It's show 211. We haven't done one since the singing Santa Claus back in early December. Already.
Right?
Already.
That is
I know you missed me.
quite some production
Isn't
values.
it great? Yeah. And this is Gino Fratelloni. I know you remember him. He's been on assignment.
I'm an assignment.
You paying them all?
Yeah.
And over here we have our guest today, doctor, right?
Oh, that's true.
Doctor of medical, no, Dr. Christopher Chew, who is the superintendent of. Can I finish first?
Hey, but they had children's voices. That was appropriate.
I know, they were that's from the kindergarten, elementary.
I like
He's the superintendent of Westford Schools. All right, come on now.
Oh, no,
Oh, that's all.
no more cheering. Oh, there you go.
Crickets, huh?
I thought I was doing better than that, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
he's that's your support group.
Right?
Yeah. Now, Chris, how long you been superintendent?
This is my 4th year.
4th year.
I've been in the district for 11 years. I was
You were
principal
at
before that.
Christopher School?
I was at Stony Brook.
I was close. I had
were?
2 choices.
Right?
So, and you were you principal there?
I was principal at Stony Brook for 7 years. Yep.
And then you won the lottery? Yeah.
And then, or I lost. It depends on how you want to look
It
at
depends.
that.
Let's interview some of the students. What do you think of?
Right? Oh, that'd be interesting. Hopefully you would hear good things, but you never know.
No, they don't. They don't pay attention.
They give you any problem, the kids?
Our kids pay attention.
Yeah.
You could pay attention?
Yeah, the students pay
Really?
attention. Yeah,
Well, we'll have to
they're
stop
pretty
that.
engaged.
We have to stop that. All right. We have about 8, I don't know who we are. We have about 8 questions here, but there's an item, middle school and high schools moving to start the fall 2025 to 8 o'clock from 7:35. Now, what's the difference in 25 minutes?
Well, for a number of years now, probably I'd say 6 to 8 years, the school committee has been exploring trying to change the start times, because you're right, 25 minutes, that's not necessarily a lot of time. But all of the science is very clear that our adolescents, all of their biorhythms and everything about being an adolescent, they need to get more sleep. They should be having school start later than it has been historically. A lot of other towns, a lot of other places had already kind of moved towards this. And we're actually adjusting all of our times slightly.
Really?
So the 6 through 12, you're right, they're going to be starting at 8 o'clock. That little bit of time makes a big difference,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Just
Yeah, correct.
mentally, and just the idea of
Yeah.
what time you have to start getting ready. And then the 3 to 5 schools are also going later. So the 3 to 5 schools right now are they start at approximately 8:30, and they're going to be starting around 8:50, 8:55. And then the K to 2 schools, they're only changing by 5 minutes, so they're going to be around 9, 10.
5 minutes, dude.
Well, so that we could balance everything,
Oh.
because we had to figure out then if you're going to move one, and
gotta
we
move the
use
other.
the buses for the same.
Right.
All of the schools, you have to make sure that you do it in such a way that it all still works.
Now, do they go to school later? When they come out? Come out later?
So the length of the day will still be the same.
But it's
so
shifted.
it all shifting by 25 minutes. So right now they get out at the 6 through 12 get out at 1:55. They'll be getting out at 2:20.
Must some complain about that.
Well, I mean, I think.
Interfering with my game.
Well, no, because that's one of the things that athletics was one of the big things that came up, right? That was a concern that folks were looking at. But we're in what's called the dual county league, and so all the different school districts that we already compete with, most of them were already later than us.
Oh, all right.
And our students, for the most part, were already waiting for a large number of those games to take place. So one of the things that the school committee did is they worked with our director of athletics to say, okay, what impact is this going to have? And he was able to look at all of the information and work with everybody and say that the 8 o'clock was the ideal, because they had looked at other things. They had said, okay, what if we went to 8:30? What if we went to 8:15? What if we went to 8 o'clock? And we looked to see what impact would that have on buses? Would it cost us more money? This is a change that's going to be budget neutral. So we're able to do it for the same amount, and that's another reason why it's only 25 minutes and not a larger.
Can I make a wild suggestion?
Go for it.
They go to bed earlier.
Yeah.
Stop watching TV and do your homework earlier.
Well, it's an interesting suggestion, but that's exactly what the scientists were saying that wouldn't make any difference, because what happens in adolescence, it's like their whole circadian rhythms, that's the word that I was missing earlier, right? It's actually more difficult for adolescents to fall asleep earlier. It's harder for them. So that's why they start to stay up later. It's naturally, and this is for the majority. Of course, there's always going to be an exception to the rule. There's always going to be somebody who does actually fall asleep easier
like in
and stuff like
class.
that. Like in class, right?
Yeah, I'm sleeping.
But it's something that they talked about. They said, okay, well, if we're, or one argument was that, well, kids are just stay up later now anyway.
Yeah.
But what we know is that if we're not asking them to get up as early, we at least have control over that. We don't have control over what time they go to bed. But if we can actually push back when they need to get up in the morning, that's helpful.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't remember circadian rhythms when I was growing up.
You don't remember them? It's so long ago. We all have them. You have them right now, too.
Wasn't it?
It was a score. It was a
band.
It was a band. I think it was actually a band.
It was a band, circadian. Did they have that in
the
Italy?
70s?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a big band in the
Big
70s.
band, big band. All right. Thank you very much for that. So now here's another question just flown in.
Okay.
How come there are so many school vacations? I don't remember that many.
Really?
Well, I have no. It was, we had the 4 days for Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Then we had the Christmas vacation.
Okay.
Should be the holiday vacation.
Sure.
now, okay. And then we had the spring break, which was around Easter.
Okay. You didn't have February when you were growing up?
Nay.
Oh. See, I will say, I don't know how young you are.
42.
Okay, so
I just grew up in New York and looked terrible.
Okay, I was going to say. So if you're 42, I'm a little bit older than you are.
Good. And boy, do you look it.
Right? And so when I grew up here in New England, I grew up just next door in Chelmsford, and we had the same vacations, right? We had the December break, we had a break at Thanksgiving, we had a break in February, and we had a break in April.
Where did the February break come from?
I don't know. We always had it. When I was growing up, the whole time I was in school, we had it. And I will tell you, as a building administrator, we need it. Because when we talked about it, it comes up every now and then. Different districts will look at it. And I know Westford talked about it a number of years ago. Like, should we go to a March break and combine the two of them? But when you are in a school, in New England specifically, and as you are getting close to February, you need to deep clean that building, because there's so many colds and so many sicknesses in January and February.
But didn't we have that when we were back in the dark ages when I went?
I think you probably had a February vacation.
We did not.
Yeah,
Wait, you said you grew up in New York too, right?
Yeah, with New
so
York.
who knows
we
what they
didn't have
did?
a February
Who knows?
Vacation.
Yeah, they were mean. They didn't
They
give
had
it
cattle
to
move you in.
you. Right.
No, we
We've
didn't
always
have.
said that's
Did you
always
have
been
that?
pretty typical around here.
I don't recall. Good answer.
Yeah, it's pretty
No, I don't.
typical.
I don't remember. No, we didn't have that.
Yeah, we did.
Well, I'm sorry.
Well, or it's good for us. Good for us
Yeah.
that we already had them.
I don't remember deep cleaning of high
Well,
schools.
they might not have deep cleaned. Of course, COVID changed everything, right?
right.
So I mean, and we were already having that argument before the pandemic.
Oh, all right.
But it's just something. It gets people are ready for that February break.
The way they are, don't you have to spray it every day? I mean.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
They
see that?
they still stay pretty clean, but you know what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
it's just the sniffles and the coughing and the
And the
colds
wheezing.
that people get, and the wheezing, if you will, that
Yeah,
people
you're
get
right.
in
The teachers
January
are
and February.
getting sick from them too.
And everybody will get sick.
What about you?
I try to take good care of myself, and but
There's a spray can on the
yeah.
desk. Get away from me.
it's also different. I will say that the whole we've learned a lot. We'll just say we've all learned a lot,
Okay.
right? I think we all probably wash our hands a lot more than we did 10 years ago,
Till the fingers crack.
right?
Yeah. All right. What else? At high school, they want what? Yes.
Nothing. Go ahead.
High school, they want to talk about if you're on sports. If you're in sports in the junior and senior year of high school, eliminating. You don't have to go to phys ed classes.
No, you do. So that's last year when we were
Did they vote against that?
they've been talking about it.
Right.
Some people brought up a question as to our current graduation requirements in Westford. say that students have to have 4 years of physical education. And so last year, and they've asked the question before, but last year, some people really started asking the question, okay, there are a couple of districts in the state of Massachusetts who have created waivers or have created other alternatives for students. The state law actually says that in public education, students must have an English class and a physical education class every single year. It's actually the only two courses that the law actually says has to take place. Now we know there's standards for all these other subjects as well too. But so the question comes up is that other districts either interpret that differently or some have come up with alternative ways to address physical education. So we had some residents who have been asking us, should we be considering that as well too? So it is something that the school committee is looking at in the graduation policy, in the graduation requirements. But you know, we still continue to follow what we believe that the law is telling us to do.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna give you $1.
Okay.
How does it yuck it up? Will you? How does the school budget look for next year?
Well.
Trouble.
Right. It's last year was really difficult. Right. So last year we went for we had sort of requested an override. We had 2 different budgets.
Yeah.
The override didn't pass, and as a result, we actually from last year to this year we reduced staff by 51.6 positions. Right.
Oh, too bad.
Positions, which is a lot, right?
Not percent.
No. 51, just over 51 positions. Because we had to make that significant adjustment last year, this year it's still not great, but it's not the same dire situation that it was last year because we had to reset. Now, class sizes have increased. Some classes haven't been able to, certain classes at the academy weren't able to run. And we still have a deficit. Based on what our needs are, we had to balance the budget this year, and so we had to deal with a $1.1 million deficit to what our needs were, to what would be a balanced budget for town meeting. And so we've made that adjustment by identifying a couple more efficiencies and by coming up with a plan that would help us. We have a 3-year plan right now that's helping us to increase some of our offsets, but it's only a temporary plan. So we what people will see at town meeting this year will be the recommendation for us to bring a balanced budget to town meeting. So it's not the same situation where we had 2 different possible budgets last year. We're just proposing one. But it's not, I don't want to say it's great because the things that we lost last year, we still don't have.
Right.
So we haven't reinstated anything. We're still, it's still not ideal, but we didn't have to make the same number of reductions.
But somebody could say that, well, you had to make that many. Maybe you had too many employees floating around.
And I would say that's not true. So,
well, of course you would.
Right. So one of the things, and we can get into the weeds with it a little bit more, right? The idea is that we had 2 budgets last year.
Yeah.
Even in the budget that, even if the override passed, we were still going to be reducing around 30 positions, right? So that was happening anyway. When the override failed, we had to reduce an additional 21 positions. So somewhere in that initial 30, some of those were efficiencies, right? Some of those were saying, okay, wait a second, it's not ideal, but we could probably still do okay without that. Right. Some were absorbing retirements, saying, okay, this is something, but I would say we haven't been in a position where we had more than we needed. We just have gotten to a point where Westford was fortunate, and we had things that we're looking at saying maybe we can't afford to keep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a favorite one of mine. Why is cursive not taught? I mean, the kids can't even read a note, right?
I know.
You're not going to always have a computer with you.
Well, I don't know. It doesn't mean that they would then start writing in cursive though again. So let me answer that more specifically though. We do have teachers who are still teaching cursive. Okay, in the elementary schools, it is still introduced in many of our classrooms. It's not part of the standards in the state in the same way. because if you're going to add stuff, right? I mean, you also like history, right? We know that as we're continuing to look at history, we can't just keep adding to it because we run out of time. So there has to be trade-offs. So if we're going to increase the things that we're asking students to learn and or teachers to be responsible for teaching, something's got to give. And somewhere along the way, and I couldn't tell you when because I don't necessarily know when it happened, they said that teaching the skill of cursive wasn't the same, it didn't have the same priority. Now, there's now new research that's coming out saying that teaching of cursive is actually good for the brain, right? So it's something that we should be able to do. So what I'm happy about is that we have some teachers who are still doing it, and then they use it for supplementary things that they'll do. They'll have the students work on something else and they'll have them still kind of practice those cursive skills, but it's not the standard that it was when we were growing up.
The thought just disappeared.
Oh, no.
Yes. Do you have that thought? Oh.
Okay.
History, right?
Yeah.
Why can't they chop off some of the older history stuff, like learning about the rise and fall of the Greek and Roman Empire? I don't know.
You know what? I think that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. I do know that as the historians and or the scholars and the social studies experts who are the ones who craft the social studies standards and frameworks for the state of Massachusetts, they're looking at ancient civilizations and the rise and fall of certain civilizations as the foundation of others. So they're saying if we study that, we're going to then have a better understanding of the others. But it's a good question because I'm not necessarily sure I would be able to tell you which ones are the ones we should look at and which ones are the ones we shouldn't look at.
You know, gosh, you know,
Right.
For instance, they don't know much about. If you mention something from like World War II,
Right.
what? I don't know. Well,
I will say our high schools have been able to do a better job addressing histories of even the 20th century, right? So I mean, now that we're not even in the 20th century, but the fact that, like, I remember again growing up, we weren't touching a lot of the 20th century history in our history classes. Our high school students are exploring that more. But it's still problematic. And so one of the things that happens is that now our middle school students are studying those ancient civilizations where that might have waited until high school. Now they're studying that, and I think our high schools then are able to kind of dive a little bit deeper, but they also look at it in different ways so that they are, like civics disappeared for a while.
yeah.
Massachusetts and other states have done as well too, but Massachusetts has really leaned into bringing back civics. So the 8th grade curriculum across the state of Massachusetts is now a civics foundation, which really had sort of disappeared from the standards, and they brought that back.
Okay. Let's see. We have 9:45 left in the fourth quarter.
Oh, there's the countdown.
There's the
You're
count-
running out of time.
I can slow it down.
You can.
All right. Oh, here's another biggie which drives
Okay.
me crazy. Whatever happened to a dress code?
Right.
I mean, come on now.
Well, so
I've been throwing flags all over the place.
you are throwing flags all over the place. So the dress code's interesting. Dress codes, when we started looking at, and this will honestly go back to the 60s, right? So you're talking 1960s to where we are now.
Right.
People started questioning dress codes that existed. And they started looking at it and saying, okay, well, wait a second. With all of the individual rights that we have,
Right.
can we dictate what people are wearing? And so schools have to live within a very very tight framework as to, okay, well, is it appropriate for this space or is it not? And if you are going to have a dress code that says what students can and can't wear, you need to. It needs to be something that's also not going to discriminate.
Right.
Right. So they have to figure that out as well too.
But what about they go to school in pajama bottoms, and then they also have. I mean, if the girls, for instance, the shorts get any shorter.
Well, I'm going to stop you right there, right? Because I'm just going to say one of the issues that came up that I think was a good question that people started asking a number of years ago is, well, wait a second, why should one gender be expected to follow a standard and the other one not?
Well, the other one
right?
should too. They go in looking like
So,
that.
so if you then want to say, okay, this is a place of learning, so then what can our expectation be? But you just have to be careful because
Well, I know,
everybody
because-
still has rights.
But everybody, so many people complain about so many things.
Right. But what you think is acceptable and what Gino thinks is acceptable and what I think is acceptable and what the folks behind the glass might think is acceptable, those could all be very different. So you need to have
I understand
expectation that's allowing, and again, it's a public school.
Right.
If it's a private school, make whatever rules you want, right? But if we're going to be a public school that's going to be welcoming and supporting everybody, you have to be prepared to do that. So there are things that you can say. I can say that you can't have anything that's dangerous. You can't have anything that's actually going to be infringing on somebody else's rights. You
Right.
can't have something that's saying something that is derogatory or is offending somebody else. But outside of, your shorts have to be a certain length, or it gets
Well, of course,
it gets dicey.
But so many people complain about so many things.
Yeah.
Now, before that wasn't. I mean, what the heck? What do you got nothing else to do?
Right.
But to complain about everything?
Right. But you're also talking to a superintendent who has long hair and earrings.
I don't
Right.
want to bring that up.
Right? See what I'm saying? Like, people have different expectations.
Yeah, but it does-
I walk into rooms and I'm sure there's people who are like, hey, he shouldn't be. I'm like, well,
Hey, man, get a haircut and get rid of
right,
those
get a
ears.
haircut, right, or shave or something like that. And I'm
I'm
like,
over that.
I'm
I'm
still.
over
You
that.
got over
I'm
it? Okay,
over
good.
that.
I'm good. I'm good. I figure I'll bring it up before you do, right? But and then are people? Is it what is a professional environment right now?
They wear anything they want.
I'm not sure the last time I saw anybody in a business environment wearing a suit and tie.
No.
They don't do it anymore,
No.
right?
Yeah, but the children should be understand, and the
Yeah.
parents should tell the children, trying to be, to go to school, look, appropriate.
But a lot of the parents don't even believe in that.
Well, I think the other piece comes down is that what is appropriate, even that can be subjective.
Oh, yeah.
And so everybody has an opinion about that.
Yeah, I
so
know.
that's why you can then say, okay, there are certain things we can say, right? It can be about everything is ultimately, first and foremost, safety,
Right, right.
Physical safety. So that's where you can say things like, okay, for phys ed, you have to have sneakers. You have to be wearing
Right.
shoes that you're not going to get hurt,
Right. Yeah.
And so you can do things like that. But is there really an argument that says that you can't wear sandals in a classroom? Well, in a science classroom, I could say that.
Well, they
But-
want to burn your feet.
right? Like in a science lab, I can say there are certain things that you need to have for safety. But I don't know if that really is necessary for your math class.
But if it's unrestricted, the way I see it now,
Right.
it looks like it's unrestricted.
Yeah.
You can wear anything.
I think
goes.
there are some expectations. It's just that it depends on how you define those expectations, and that's where that's where you.
That should come
it has-
from the parents.
Yeah.
But
I
it
mean, we
doesn't
do
work
still
that
have dress
way.
codes. We have dress codes in our. I mean, we have standards and expectations
Right.
that exist in our handbooks. And students you can talk to students and adults for that matter, right? If people are not, if you don't think that they're adhering to that, it's just that what would then be the response to that, right?
No matter what you do, there'll always be people complaining.
Oh, that's true.
I mean,
I learned that pretty quickly when I became an
oh
administrator.
yeah. Then it
You're
then
always
it gets
gonna.
to the point. I'm doing this.
Right.
You don't like it?
There are times when you just have to make a decision
Yeah,
and someone's
that's
not
it.
going to agree with it. Yeah, that's true.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're
on
very
that.
welcome.
All right, now
3 minutes.
3
you
minutes.
are running out of time. That's
you want to watch that number way up there dropping off?
well, the
one that has
hundredths or
speed
whatever,
up.
the thousandths, whatever. There,
What is
that's
it?
that's really intense.
Hundredths. No,
Is
it's
it?
thousands.
That would be the thousandths, right? Because it's the tens, the hundreds. So the other one is really
All
counting
right,
down
don't
the
make
thousands.
me look bad, will you, please?
Right?
Please don't.
That's intimidating.
That's no. I just ignore it. All right. Now here's one that gets into it.
Okay.
What is the, what? Who wrote? Oh, I did. What is the policy on transgender students in sports?
Okay. Right now, that's super.
Personally, I cannot see somebody who was a male playing with on a females team because I still think they're stronger.
So I'll stop you there, right? So the first thing is that I think that there's a misunderstanding about the notion of transgender, right? And so right now in Massachusetts, and I am very thankful that Massachusetts is still supporting and protecting everybody's rights, right? All of our rights are well protected. And so transgender individuals are still protected in the state of Massachusetts. And the MIAA, which is the Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association, who governs all of Massachusetts competitive sports, a number of years ago, they, in line with the state laws in Massachusetts, said that students can participate on teams that in which they identify with the appropriate gender. So we don't have, and the other thing that I think is interesting is people are talking about this as if there's this massive conspiracy for someone to play on a sports team and benefit from having a different physical, different physicality to it.
No, I'm
if you
just
will,
saying,
right?
I didn't.
But you said like second somebody feel like for somebody, if a transgender female should be able to participate in female sports. And
Oh, I didn't say no.
Right.
Fine, but when you cross over, there was a football player. I don't know if it was on a place in Ohio or she was on the team. It's a football team, college, and she was kicking off and doing field goals. When she did fine, I don't care. And she did the field goals. The coach told her, "Get off the field. Kicking off. Get off the field or punting. I don't know if she punted. Get off the field as soon as you can." She didn't want him to get hurt because some of these big guys would come down. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. I don't know that story at all.
No, but I'm saying
Yeah, I think
it's not safe.
I think but what we have to talk about, and I think what we're looking at again is, are we truly protecting? I think all of our rights are very
Right.
important,
Yeah, that's
and I don't think
important.
any of our rights should be taken
Right,
away from
right.
us, right? And so, if that's something that an individual wants to do to play a specific sport, are we supporting that opportunity for people to do that? Whether or not somebody's concerned that they're going to get hurt or they're not going to get hurt.
Right,
That's the nature of sports in general.
Yeah.
Right,
know,
but
I
they
think.
thought that.
I don't think that that's a gender issue.
No, but
right?
she thought that. All right, it's a female kicker, and these big, strong guys
Yeah.
are coming down the field. He didn't think it was safe for her to stay out there; that she could get hurt easily. I would personally run off the field myself.
I would also say, I mean,
Up.
when you're we're out of time.
What would also? All right, we'll be back later. Are you coming back? I don't know. We'll be back later in March with show 212. After that, if you want to be on the show, call the station or email them. We have a few openings.
A few? Okay.
Too few to
They're booking up
mention.
fast.
Oh, they're yeah, it's like flights.
It took me forever to get on your show.
That's right. Yeah, because he was so busy. busy. All right, I believe that's it. Well, thank you very much.
I don't know. I thought we were done. We're not done.
Oh, we're done.
Oh, there it is.
And Sullivan is dead, but Cohen isn't. And when it comes to weather, Cohen's smart. As New York as you get, his money's on the Mets, which goes to show that Ed's a Joe who always bets his heart. You'll hear a slick review or two from Nicky. And Cantor Something Berg will sing some song. There's weather news and shtick, enough to make you sick. You'll be glad you came along.